Well, obviously, this is proof that a diplomacy, that mediation can, in fact, bring an end to armed conflict. It is a ceasefire. There's still a long way to go. There's still a lot of negotiations that have to be conducted. But the bottom line here is that mediation and diplomacy will always be the backbone and the cornerstone for longstanding solutions to armed conflict, and this is proof. I think, if we can get through the 14 days, even President Trump's comments on social media have determined the fact that even he believes that this is going to be a starting point for the creation of a longstanding peace agreement between all parties involved. I'm optimistic. I mean, look, we saw what happened from the first day of this conflict till now. We saw a global economic crisis continuing to grow. We saw oil prices going from the low 90s all the way, even all the way up to as high as $117 a barrel today. And the reality is that we've seen it since the announcement. Oil has dropped down below $100 a barrel, at $95 a barrel. So that's going to help ease some of the stress on the global economy. I mean, long term, I mean, this is also going to prevent further loss of innocent lives, further damage and harm to innocent civilians. There's all kinds of reasons why this is good. The question is, can everybody keep restraint? Can everybody keep cooler heads and make sure that the diplomatic and mediation process is able to succeed without throwing rhetoric, without throwing these little proxy hits out there? Everybody's going to have to keep control. Yes. I think it's unclear. I think that look, Iran Iran did not start this. Let's just be clear about this. This was a an offensive action taken by Israel and the United States. Uh, we can dissect the reasoning. We can dissect the objectives long after we're at the negotiating table. Iran's objectives was to control the Straits of Hormuz. I don't know, and they've said that. Did they have it as a playing card that they could play? Absolutely. Did they play it effectively? I believe they did. Look what happened when they shut down the Straits of Hormuz. It caused a global economic crisis to start to spike, and it brought the US and Israel to the negotiating table. So for that it was effective, but was that their main goal? I'm not sure it was their main goal, because quite frankly they didn't start this. Look, I think several things are in play here. Number one, uh, yes, the 400 kilograms of enriched uranium is still somewhere in the Iranian countryside. That is going to have to be addressed. I would believe, and I am hopeful, that part of the negotiations is that Iran will divest, and they will, release into IAEA or a third party that will take custody of it and dispose of it properly. If Iran was serious, as they've said before, that they do not wish to seek nuclear weapons proliferation, that they want to use nuclear power for peaceful purposes, okay, that can be part of the negotiation. But the fact is that while it's out there, it poses a risk. I believe that the U.S. and Israel are correct about that. But I also believe that the U.S. and Israel have effectively, they've they've hit the Iranian defense mechanisms, the defense complex. They've pretty much taken out most of their naval and air force capabilities. But as we've even seen as late as tonight, they still have the ability to fire rockets, launch missiles, and fight this war ongoing. So the end result here is that if everybody is serious, and this is going to be the key factor here, and I've said this on this network and I say it all the time, all parties involved have to come to the negotiating table in good faith. There has to be good faith negotiations, or else this does not work. I believe as long as everybody acts in good faith, that is the leadership in Tehran, the leadership in Tel Aviv, and the leadership in Washington, we can see long-standing conclusions, long-standing solutions to this conflict, and we could see a new dawn of possible peace in the Middle East, which is something that Donald Trump has been trying to promote since he got reelected. Well, I can tell you that I'm in Doha right now. I've been here for a couple of days, and there was an alert that was put out by the authorities, and that has since been rescinded. I can tell you right now that it appears that the ceasefire is beginning. I believe that the ceasefire is going to continue to take hold. The concern I think that I have strategically is the fact that when you look at the Iranian forces, if you look at the IRGC, if you look at the Iranian military, the U.S. and Iran have done a good job of curtailing their command and control. And as a result of that, some of the individual commanding officers and command authorities may be still acting individually. That was a concern from several weeks ago when this first began and the attacks started happening in Iran. I believe now that the ceasefire is holding. I have not seen anything indicating that differently here in Qatar. But again, I have not seen other reports of other escalation happening since this announcement, and the Iranians have agreed to it. The Iranians have stated that they will abide by this all sides ceasefire for 14 days. And my concern is the restraint and the good faith. If those take place, if there is good faith and they do and they can control their armed forces from conducting these little military operations, then there's no reason to believe that this won't be successful. Well, I believe that the ceasefire, I can't obviously speak for any of the Gulf states, but my understanding in talking to some folks is that the Gulf states are receptive to the ceasefire. That takes them out of the crosshairs. That takes risk away from them. So I have to believe that they are thinking that this is a positive maneuver. I think it's still very early to determine, the full reaction. I know I have not been read in as to what the agreement looks like. I know that those details are going to start to come out to the public here shortly. And I also believe that it's in everybody's interest to make sure that this agreement holds. The Gulf states never wanted this. We've seen Qatar, we've seen Oman put a lot of political and diplomatic capital into trying to find solutions to armed conflicts in the Middle East. When Iran struck the Gulf states, I don't know. I mean, I wish I could read into Donald Trump's I wish I could read into Donald Trump's social media mentality or social media operational thought process. That's only something up to Donald Trump. How can we read into that? I don't know. I mean, that's only something that Donald Trump can answer. I'm hoping that he's being supportive. Well, how so? Yeah, I mean, if he's sharing posts and the posts are positive, I have not seen the post. Let me just be clear. I don't know the post you're talking about, so I can't really answer that. If you told me the post he was sharing, I might be able to comment on that, but I can't go any further than that. It makes sense. I mean, look, Israel's had loss of innocent lives, and I think that there's pressure internal in Israel to stop continuously, this continuous conflict, stop the continuous bombing, whether it's from Iran, whether it's from Hezbollah to the north, whether it's from Hamas there in Gaza or in the West Bank. I think they're getting tired of it. They want to see a peaceful coexistence. I believe that Iran also understands that this could be detrimental to them. This could absolutely be something that could really. Oh, will they abide by the ceasefire? In my opinion, that's the great unknown. My fear has been since this announcement is it's largely been a deal between the United States and Iran. Israel has commented that they've agreed to it. The big question is, will Tel Aviv stand by this agreement? I think as long as Tehran is able to rein in and restrain and put the order out to its proxies not to use military aggression against Israel during this 14-day span, I think that it's in Tel Aviv's best interest to maintain that. So the big concern here is going to be is are all parties going to be able to act in good faith and maintain this 14-day ceasefire without having these little skirmishes create further tension and then we see escalation again? Yeah, I mean, am I hopeful? Is the world hopeful that the U.S. and Iran, who have been literally at odds for the past 47 years, yeah, I believe that this could be a new stage in dialogue, in diplomacy between Tehran and Washington. That's never a bad thing. It's never a bad thing when two adversaries can come back to the negotiating table and at least maintain a peaceful dialogue. That prevents escalation, armed conflict, and loss of life. All day long, support that. Do I think it's something that can be long term? I do believe that. I do believe that the world is getting tired of conflict after conflict after conflict. And I think this could be, I hope, the beginning of what could be an era of peace rather than an era of continuous conflict. Yeah, I think that the West underestimated that capacity. I think that that was a wake up call for them. I think that this is all going to be part of the negotiations that will start on Friday. I don't think that the ability of Iran to create an intercontinental ballistic missile system is going to be on the table. I think that's a non-starter. But I do believe that when they get to the negotiating table, that Iran will probably say, look, we have to have the capabilities to defend our territory and our sovereignty. That they're going to make an argument that they should have some ability to have a missile that could defend their territory, their sovereign territory, and their people. I believe that there's going to be probably dialogue that will say that Iran wants the peaceful use of a nuclear program that can generate power for medicine, for industrial purposes, without the need for enriched uranium. Look, the only reason why you need enriched uranium is to create and proliferate nuclear weapons. I think if Iran agrees, and it agrees to very stringent terms and conditions, they will be able to be able to negotiate possibly the peaceful use of nuclear weapons. I think the other thing that we have to look at here is, look, Iran's economy has been horrible for many years because of sanctions, because of isolation from the global economic community. I think what we're going to see is that part of the negotiation, and it's in Iran's best interest to do so, is to play by the rules of the negotiation, act in good faith, and they could return slowly to the global economy and the global economic community, which means that that takes pressure off of Iran, that takes pressure off the Iranian people, and it's a lot easier to coexist when there's not those economic pressures. No, no, nobody wins in this. Look, Iran has been hit and hit hard. Let's be clear about this. There have been strikes against the Gulf, the GCC states. That was reprehensible, and quite frankly, Iran crossed a line that they're going to have to be held accountable for with their GCC neighbors. That's between the GCC states and Tehran. Is there going to be accountability? I'm almost sure that there will be for that. But the end result here is there are no winners. The U.S. took a hit in its ability and its credibility to negotiate in good faith when all of a sudden, as they were saying, as they were negotiating with the Omanis, when the Omanis were trying to mediate a de-escalation or a resolution before the conflict started, Donald Trump in the White House said that we'll give them another 7 days, and all of a sudden they started bombing. They started an offensive. Iran is going to have to also realize that the proxies are a problem. When they see attacks by proxies, it ties back to Tehran somehow, and they're going to have to be held accountable for that too. There's no. I think if Iran is serious about becoming part of the global community again, if Tehran is serious about looking for peace, they're going to have to control the proxies. There's just that's going to be a heavy duty requirement. If the proxies continue to get support, funding, and encouragement from Tehran, then all this is just a temporary fix to a much longer standing problem that's going to have to be addressed. I think for its own long-standing, it's either join the community, it's either act peacefully, or you're going to face the wrath. I mean, look, if this conflict proved anything, it is the fact that even though it was an offensive by the United States and by Israel, Tehran took some actions against their neighbors, which was uncalled for, unjustified, and illegal in many instances. If Iran, President Trump was talking about regime change. President Trump was talking that rhetoric for a long time. If the current regime does not want to see regime change at the hands of outside influences, they're going to have to change the way that they do business in the global community.